So level one, you get into that situation, you get uncomfortable, all of a sudden you feel triggered. What can you do to actually start working through that problem? Well, number one would be journaling. And whenever I'm talking about journaling, it's fine to type, but there was a study that was done in early 2023 in a university over in Europe where they actually took 70 students, divided it into two different control groups, and they hooked up 256 electrodes to measure their brain waves whenever it came to studying and whenever it came to putting information out there. Half of the group had to type out information, okay? The other half wrote down things, either stylus to screen or pen to paper. And the remarkable thing is the group that wrote things out by hand, not just typed, they engaged 5 other areas in their brain that the control group that just typed did not. Emotionally, whenever you write, you're having to slow down. You're forcing yourself to process through. You're doing something called actualizing. You're taking this thought in your mind, right, which we talked about earlier, is a non-physical thing, and then you're taking a piece of paper or you're taking something in front of you and you're writing it down. You're actualizing it. You're saying, no, this really happened. Then you can go back and review that information and say, okay, how do I deal with this? So what are the benefits? Number one, self-awareness. Journaling helps whenever it comes to you becoming self-aware of your triggers. You become self-aware of your insecurities. Number two, creativity. It unlocks parts of your brain that are going to contribute to creativity whenever it comes to working through problems, right? And this can be applied in business. Maybe you keep on trying to do something over and over and over again in business, and it just is not working. Maybe you have a client that's super stubborn and for some reason you can't get past it. Go write it down. The other thing that it does, which is really remarkable, is improved memory. It actually taps into your limbic system where your hard drive is housed in your brain, and it actually increases your memory. And this is scientifically proven over multiple studies. The other thing that it does is it actually lowers your stress, your cortisol in your body. So tool number one, whenever you're out there, you feel stressed out, go grab a journal, write something down, slow down to actualize it, and then come back and revisit it and see how you feel about it and how real it was for the situation. The second thing you can do is read. Now, you can do audiobooks, you can physically read, but there was a study done by the University of Sussex. And whenever they did this study, they took all the different activities that you can do to reduce stress, and they analyzed them to see which one lowers the stress hormone or cortisol the most. Reading reduces your stress by 68%. 68%. Now, that was physical reading. I personally listen to audiobooks, and I would suggest you, if you're reading audiobooks, go write down what you're learning from it to retain the information. And here's the other thing. Whenever you get triggered, go find a book about the trigger you're going through. Whether it's you're an entrepreneur and you feel like you're stuck, go journal about it. Then go find an entrepreneur or Google someone who is also going through that journey. This gives you an unbiased opinion so that you can refer back to it, and that person doesn't know who you are, but maybe they've gone through the same scenario. So it reduces stress. It helps you visualize. Whenever you're reading a book, you can start visualizing what you're going through based off of someone else's experience. It reduces stress, like I said, and it strengthens your brain. Your brain that is, again, connected to the mind. These two things alone, if you look at the majority of successful people, these are activities that they continuously do to go back and forth to allow yourselves to start processing through that backpack, unpacking those hurts, taking those bricks out, examining them and saying, does this serve a purpose in my life anymore, right? The third thing that you can do in this process, because so many times, I know a lot of people who are introverts, they get stuck in these two, but level 3 is transparent conversations, okay? There is nothing that is more powerful than after you've started sorting through your backpack, sharing that with others and getting vulnerable. Brene Brown wrote Daring Greatly, and she talks about in that book, vulnerability being a superpower. I remember I was at a point in my life where I didn't know what I was going to do. I was so lost. And I applied these principles and actually Googled and found Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, which then led me to start sharing with other people what I was going through. This is how I started my podcast. I started talking to people and saying, hey, listen, I'm going through this. And then people started reaching out and saying, I'm not the only one. But this gave me validity. This started actualizing my problems. This started digging into my subconscious and unconscious mind so that I could start unpacking those things. What does transparent conversation do? Well, it creates oxytocin, cortisol, the stress hormone, SSRIs, which is one of the most prescribed medications, one of the most prescribed types of medications that we have right now in America. It regulates your serotonin levels, right? And so, whether you've been given, I don't know, Lexapro, right? Or a bunch of different like antidepressants, which are SSRIs. You can really help whenever it comes to that depression by going and creating oxytocin with other people by having transparent conversations. There's actually a book called Conversational Intelligence by Judith Gasser. And in that book, she actually goes in and researches the art and the science behind conversation and the power of it. Oxytocin is the feel-good hormone. That's how you bond with other people. You start realizing, well, I'm not the only person. In real life, not just from the book. The other thing it does is empathy. It increases your opportunity to empathize with other people and realize you're not the only one going through it. I'm not alone, right? After you start having these transparent conversations, after you start digging in, maybe you start realizing, wow, I really like this journey I'm on. The fourth step in breaking through these mental barriers is therapy, okay? Now, I'll tell you right now, I'm a big advocate of therapy, except there's one caveat whenever it comes to that. We've fallen into this society where you go to a therapist, your insurance pays, and every single time you show up, your therapist just goes, oh, you're doing great, you're doing great, you're doing great. You're just getting affirmed, affirmed, affirmed. You can get that from friends that, have bad habits, right? Go find a therapist that will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And in my personal opinion, pay out of pocket. The reason you pay out of pocket is you're investing in your mind, which is your most valuable asset. Invest in your mind. Medications. Maybe you are in a position in life where maybe you do need an SSRI or a bridge, but you want to find a therapist that is going to help guide you to where they're not like, well, you're stuck here forever. Someone who's actually going to work for you and they actually are going to guide you through hardship. I got a buddy, his name's Benjamin Morrell here in Oklahoma City, and he actually does therapy to where he does cold therapy, cold plunge therapy, sauna therapy, like an immersive experience to help people really break through these barriers because he doesn't want to see you forever. He wants to see you healthy. That's the kind of therapist you need to look for. That's the kind of friends you need to look for when it comes to transparent conversations. People that will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. The other reason is it strengthens your brain. Going to therapy strengthens your brain. You're paying this person to basically mirror back to you what you need to hear. Because a lot of times, if we've gone through this process, we know what we're dealing with. This person just helps guide you if you go find a good one that'll actually help you do this. So whenever it comes to your mental health, again, the four things you can do is journal, you can read, you can have transparent and open conversations. And then if you feel like you need to go to the next step, go find a good therapist and pay out of pocket. And I promise it'll be one of the best investments you've ever made.